Right. So my name is Siddhartha Sen. I am by training a theoretical physicist. So in theoretical physics, I have shamelessly worked on many things. My specialization is very mathematical. So it's mathematical physics. So I worked in quantum field theory, conformal field theory, black hole physics, all of these mathematical. Then I moved into nanophysics. So looked at nanostructures, nanomagnetism, and so on. And they were a different area. In the last 5 or 6 years, I have started using my mathematical background to try and understand human memory. So I've been working on neuroscience. So it's a very wide range of areas. Now, I got interested in Vedanta uh, at a fairly in my university days. And my father always got me interested. I didn't pay any attention initially, and he gave me the Tat Tvamasi, you are that message of Vedanta. And later, as I started reading, I have no Sanskrit, but I read English translations, and slowly it became clear to me that this is something which I would like very much because it has got almost the rigor of theoretical physics. It's a very rigorous thing, and it's also predictive. So these are two things which I found attractive. So this is the way I got into the thing, and I specifically to publicly disclose my interest is due to Swami Vedamohananda ji of Gretz. He invited me to come and give a talk in Gretz, and I gave that, and he invited me the next year. The first one was on science and Vedanta. The second one, he wrote down the topic for me, and the topic was self-realization through mathematics. So, since I have no shame, I said, yes, I'll do it. And so both of these things were here. So that's how I got involved in, and it's very good that I'm now back in Gretz and able to record my gratitude to him for his great kindness and his example as a Vedantist. Definition of Vedanta is short, and I will take the definition given by the Mandukya Upanishad. And the Mandukya Upanishad has 12 verses. And I think in the translation read by Nikhilanando, he said, Ram had said, if you just read one Upanishad, just read one book, and you have everything there. So what is the definition? The definition is Vedanta seeks to know reality. And it gives a very precise definition of reality. It says reality is something unchanging. It's outside space, time, and causality. So you can define anything you want. No one can stop you. But then they say such a reality exists. And they said it is represented by a symbol Om. And the symbol has three parts. And the three parts tell you how to produce three sounds with your mouth and tongue and lip. From those three sounds, you can make all possible sounds. So it gives you a symbol which in it contains infinite number of possibilities. And so you have the three sounds, and all together you have the Om, and that merges into soundlessness. Now, but this thing has a limitation. And the limitation is because Vedanta tells you that this reality is one. But here I'm breaking up the reality into three parts. So the real Vedanta thing should not have any parts. And so they have another definition. They said, and here they do not talk about parts, and that is, it is Brahman. And there are no parts there. So you see, this idea has a tremendous precision. And then once they've got these two things out of the way, then they say their stunning statement is yourself, Atman, is Brahman. So now that is a sudden statement, and then they try to provide experimental evidence for it. And the experimental evidence is through the stages of awareness, the different stages of awareness. In the Western society, when you're awake, that's it. That is the main focus. And then Sigmund Freud and people like him said maybe your dreams are of importance. But these guys at Brahma and the Vedanta, they said, no, no, you have the waking state, you have the dreaming state, and you have the deep sleep state. And the most important is the deep sleep state. Usually a Western guy would say, deep sleep, you don't see any differences, nothing is remembered, it is useless state. Right? And then they said, but this thing gives you a taste for something which is unchanging. It is bringing you closer to Brahman. But you get out of it because you wake up. But then they said that you can have a fourth state, Turiya. In that state, you can directly experience Brahman. So the point of their discussion of this with the definition of Brahman is it is something which is a hypothesis, but something which you can realize if you are genuinely interested and if you are willing to make the effort to reach there, right? And it makes a suggestion that you are closest to Brahman when you are identifying things which do not change. So let me give you an example. Two things which immediately show up are the self. The self is something you feel that you have a self, and that is unchanging. And the second thing is your deep sleep. In your deep sleep, you're getting close to your real nature, right? So what experimental possibilities arise from that? The experimental possibility is that if you're in that state, you have access to all the universe, because Brahman is one and you're close to the source of everything. So it would immediately imply that your most creative things will come during deep sleep. Now recently in Paris in 2020 or 2019 or something like that, the group in the Brain Institute have tried to look into creativity, and forgotten the lady's name who was in charge. It's Advances in Science, it's published there. And there she said that they did these experiments and they found that people with that undergone a deep sleep phase, they could solve problems. So they said that we have opened up a door of studying creativity. So I thought this would be a nice little thing in France to point out to French people who are doing this work, and at an institute in France on Vedanta. So Vedanta is something which you are not asked to follow. No one in any of the Upanishads tells you that please, if you follow it, you will become a rich person, or you become a happy person, or you become a joyous person. What they tell you is that it is your destiny to follow Vedanta. And once you follow it, they tell you, like the Isha Upanishad tells you, that the greatest joy comes if you do selflessly help someone else. And if you renunciate, you give something out. And so this message is an uplifting message. And if people practice it, then they will get this joy, promised joy, and I think the world will become a better place. The idea of lack of free will, that is your ability uh, not to make decisions, but they're made for you. That actually came from a French person, Laplace. So Laplace found that if you use Newton's law, if you know the initial conditions, right, then what is going to happen is fixed. Now, since we are made of atoms and molecules, which you can assume by Newton's law, then everything is, we don't know what the answer is, but we know it's determined. So we might feel we're doing freely, but no, it's all determined. The flaw of that thing is that for the dynamics of Newton got replaced by the dynamics of quantum theory, and all kinds of other things happened. And complex systems behave differently from simple systems. All of those things were known. But the big thing was a human being or a living organism has things like hate, motivation, love, jealousy, envy, and those are not in Newton's laws. So the question then is, can one accommodate and understand these things within a framework? And here there was a man called Benjamin Leavitt who did some experiments on the brain, and he found that people were asked to make a decision, and he found that the brain had started making the decision before the person said, I've made the decision. And this has been repeated. So a fraction of a second before, the decision had already been made. So this is a scientific kind of thing, saying that maybe you are not making the decision, maybe yourself is making the decision. And so there's a neuroscientist called Eccles who won the Nobel Prize, and Eccles wrote a book called The Self and Its Brain. So, and later on he tried to understand how the self can control the brain. So these were arguments to suggest that you don't have free will, that things are decided for you. From the Vedanta point of view, there are two streams of thought. One is the law of karma. And the law of karma tells you, it builds on the central idea of Vedanta that you are Brahman, which means you are outside space-time and causality. So if you apparently die, the unchanging thing cannot die, so something has to remain. So logically, there should be reincarnation. So that's a logical thing. So if you have that, the law of causality should go across this barrier. So it should be there each life, right? So in that law, everything is the laws of nature and laws of what you've done, some good act or bad act, etc. All of those things will have an impact. That is one aspect. The second aspect of Vedanta, which is illustrated very strongly in many of the Upanishads, but especially in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna was told, you are not the agent. It is already, everything is determined. So you have these two contradictory, apparently, views. One is that you are an agent and you are following causal laws of karma. And the second is that it is not you, you are not an agent, God is the agent, or Brahman is the agent, right? You, Thakure Richa in the Bengali language. And so how do you reconcile the two? And the answer is that when you look at the abstract point of view, and when you say that you can realize who you really are, once you realize that, your ego goes away. There is no you. Once it's gone, all of this business of karma and free will disappear, because free will is something which is tied down to a person. But once the person is missing, once the person realizes that, yes, I know that I'm not I'm really the whole universe, then these small things disappear. So from this exalted point of view, suddenly the thing becomes clear and you understand. You cannot express it, but you understand that whatever is happening, each and everything has its place. And that understanding brings you uh, peace. Suddenly, your tensions and stresses go away because you see the pattern of the. You live your normal life, but you now are looking at events uh, uh, from a different perspective.